I think it's no longer possible for any of us to avoid talking about the issues we are facing with the often heated and now sometimes violent debates around the topic of gender fluidity or transgenderism. It's everywhere we look, impacting all facets of our lives, as the debate ultimately centers around reordering the natural order of our gender, the conventional and accepted norms that define who we are as a people, biology, the sexes, male or female, or as it's been popularly claimed now, anything that a person wants to identify goes. What has come to characterize this clash the most, in my opinion, is the impact it's having on women in my life and also around the wider community. And of course, on some fronts, the sexualization of children who are now being exposed to these ideas in often suggestive ways at a very early age in their development. These two groups are now at the receiving end of a Western world in upheaval about its identity. Women and children are disproportionately finding themselves worse off if we consider their rights, safety, and equality at all levels of life in our society. Our leaders can no longer even define them or find it within themselves to protect their identity. And sometimes they even refuse to even engage in listening to their concerns. It even feels like the corporate and commercial world that once championed the rights of women in the West have decided instead to abandon them in favor of promoting a completely foreign idea of womanhood. It's not even clear under what pretense such a decision was made. Because when did we reach such a consensus that women who are adult human females can now be shaped and molded into whatever the corporate team at Bud Light or Nike have decided? We have regressed from a society that once fought for and championed the representation of women in sports to now one that, within less than a generation, are putting those same women at a disadvantage because men who now identify as women are the same. Because of all of this, the reluctance of our leaders to identify and tackle this issue head on in a manner that attempts to address the concerns of the entire community, right? Not just one group. It's women who have once again stepped up to the plate alongside parents to advocate to protect their place in our world. And now, because of this, we are seeing an escalation in violence from extreme elements of the transgender community and their so-called allies around the world. Here in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, UK, and of course the United States of America, countless examples of extremism from these groups. These extremist elements are emboldened by the newfound willingness of governments to turn a blind eye to deplorable acts and the blasé attitude of multinational corporations that would rather push woke ideology and virtue signaling that involves the erasure of women and the sexualization of our children. Now, we are all very fortunate to be living in mostly tolerant countries that have, through the passage of time, through activism, and the processes afforded by democracy, allowed people with a diverse range of identities to find equality amongst the wider community. Although, admittedly, this is not always perfect. So I understand that it's an ongoing thing, right, to find this equality for people, for many groups that feel like they're not being heard. Yet those hard-won rights, often through years of struggle for recognition, have paved the way for these debates and discussions within our community that we are having today. But of course, there needs to be a common sense approach here that needs to be applied. There needs to be rational application of laws and limits which respect the boundaries that equality actually encapsulates. Men and women are not the same. Just like women and transgender women are not the same. So the laws that apply to these groups of people in our society must reflect that. I don't wish to demonize those in our community that feel that these debates minimize their lived experiences. Despite the representation that they are oppressed, in my opinion, to the contrary, it appears that the government, the mainstream views pushed on society by the media and corporations, center around complete and total support to their vision of the future. However, I will, as a person in my community, And also, I implore others to start speaking out on this issue as well, on behalf of and in support of their grandmothers, mothers, wives, daughters, sisters, nieces, and all the other amazing women they know in their lives. Because I don't believe it's too late to find a solution that respects everyone impacted by this issue. I think instead of allowing it to be dealt with by activists on the streets, corporations, and the government, it's time that we all tackle this issue as the human race, as a community, and put forward our reasoning and our views to the government, very openly discuss this issue. It is very confronting, of course, when talking about these things, but I think now is the right time, and now is when it's needed the most, because the escalation in violence, the escalation at the rapid rate where women are being removed from certain roles in society, right? They're becoming invisible.